What's up, guys? It's Coach Gaglione here. It's another edition of the Powerlifting for the People podcast. I'm your host, Coach Gaglione. If this is your first time stopping by, I'm Coach Gaglione, and I've been involved with powerlifting and strength coaching for over 14 years. And today we're talking about what I learned from improv. So a couple episodes back, I interviewed my improv teacher, Michael Rock, and I wanted to kind of provide a little context of how improv has helped me personally. One of the things I want to do with this information, this podcast, I don't want it to be strictly about strength training, the X's and O's. What I'm finding more and more as I dive deeper and deeper into my own personal training, my own goals, and personal development, there's a lot of things outside the gym that can affect how we do things inside the gym. It can affect our training, it can affect our performance, and ultimately our gains and our long-term progress. So I have found improv to be extremely helpful in terms of my communication skills, my listening skills, just working with people. This may not apply to everyone listening, but if there are some coaches listening, if there are some people that train with powerlifting teams, I have found over the years, I've seen a lot of powerlifting teams, powerlifting groups, powerlifting gyms kind of come and go. It's not due to lack of the lifter's ability. It's usually the lack of actual management. It's usually the lack of leadership of people. So communication is really important, and between team members, communication is really important for if you are somebody that helps out at meets, and if you're managing people. This stuff is really important, guys, and it may not be as exciting as maybe talking about 1,000-pound squats and stuff like that. But if we can communicate better, if we can listen better, we can accomplish a lot more. So this stuff is critical, and I think that improv has really helped open my eyes. And one of the things that I always try and do, and I believe I'm a little biased, obviously. I try to learn from everybody. I try to learn from personal trainers, yoga practitioners, sports psychologists, nutritionists, businessmen. And I'm not afraid to go outside my field. I'm not afraid to go outside the little bubble of powerlifting to learn and see if I could apply that knowledge and skills to this sport and to my own coaching practice and my own training. I think that's really important. So I just want to kind of lead off with that. The first and biggest thing, one of the biggest guidelines of improv is that whole idea of yes and. And a lot of people think yes and means that you have to agree, but that's not really where yes and comes from. It's just a shortened version of, it really stands for acceptance and addition. So when you're doing an improv scene, and I'm not going to get into the mechanics too much of improv because that's not really the point of the podcast. The point is what I've learned from it. You could, obviously, if you're interested in improv, if you're a local person, you could check out longislandimprov.com. Long Island Improv also has an Instagram if you want to check them out, and you could check out some Google search improv in your area if you're interested. But so basically, in an improv scene, you're going to get an offer. But basically, anything in real life can be considered, an offer. So when someone's talking with you, when someone's kind of presenting an idea, a question or concern, try to take what they gave you and add to it, accept and add to it. So even if you don't agree with it, try to take something that they give you and find the positive thing in it, find a thing that maybe is exciting, find the game in it, find the fun in it, and expand on it. So this has been very helpful for me, especially in terms of customer service. Even if someone is really upset, or maybe a client is upset about something, or maybe they didn't get the results they wanted, or they just were unhappy or confused about something, I want to try to take something that they gave me and then kind of expand on it and maybe dive a little bit deeper and then kind of, build off their idea if I can. If there was some reason, if let's say if they kind of expressed to me what their goal was, and maybe they bought a program from us, for example, and maybe they weren't happy with it, I might, offer them, a program that might better suit their needs, or I might offer a solution to help them out in a good way. So versus trying to criticize them, maybe they didn't execute the program properly, maybe they didn't eat enough or sleep enough. I might have that as a conversation as well, but also I want to take what that may be part of the conversation, but I also want to, again, do something and take what they gave me and add to it. So, in terms of, just meeting with people and just ideas and things like that, I've just been a lot more open to saying yes and just kind of seeing where it happens. If you're always saying no all the time, and I do think that there's a lot of power in saying no sometimes. Obviously you can't say yes to everything, but if you say yes a little bit more often, if you're more inclined to say yes, you're just going to be more inclined to opportunities and see where those opportunities lead you. I think it's important, obviously, ask yourself, how does it help? How does it hurt? And obviously the opportunities should be something that you believe in, but don't be afraid to say yes a little bit more often. Don't be afraid to come at things from a more positive place. I think more people often than not, especially, I'm an East Coast guy, we're a little bit more intense and brash sometimes. Most people will respond. If they don't agree with something, they're going to respond with no but. So try to replace no but with yes and, or try to replace but with yet. Try to replace these things with more positive terms, respond in a more positive way, and I think that people will respond a lot better, and the communication will be more clear, and it'll be easier to communicate with people than versus getting into an argument. The whole idea is that if we can kind of work together more versus work against each other, especially when we're involved with powerlifting teams, or if we're involved with powerlifting crews, if we're involved with, running meets. So if somebody has an idea, so for example, like I had this idea for our meet to do a spotlight. So let's say I didn't think the spotlight was good. I could accept and add to it. Oh, this is a great spotlight, and we can move it to the center, and we could use this light, and so versus saying that spotlight sucks, that doesn't really help. The conversation is over at that point. We want to add to it and expand on it. So we want to plus the idea. That's more useful than just saying, oh, I don't like that. So try to keep expanding on things, plus it versus minus it. And that could be a really good communication tool if you're working with groups, if you're trying to brainstorm ideas, just be more open to that. So that's been huge for me. So more yes and, less no but. Accept and add, accept in addition, plus the ideas. This is another good one. So this applies to training partners. This can apply to coaches, handlers, etc. But you want to make your partners look good. So even if maybe your partner makes a mistake, even if maybe it's their fault for some things, I think it's important to take ownership and take responsibility and try to always make your partner look good. So I've been definitely guilty of this, and in the past, and I try to catch myself sometimes if like a staff member makes a mistake and things like that. Really not a great idea to kind of throw your staff member or your teammate under the bus if they made a mistake. That just doesn't really help anyone. If you want to obviously pull them aside and have a conversation with them, that's a different kind of conversation. But in general, again, we want to make our partners look good. So let's say if somebody is spotting somebody, for example, and maybe, a way that you could approach it is, instead of saying like, if you kind of catch them not paying attention, you could just give them a gentle reminder. Hey, so-and-so, hey, Bobby, hey, Johnny, let's say, hey, we're spotting Johnny, we're spotting Susie now. We're going to need your help. Make sure you watch that side, versus saying, hey, dummy, pay attention, Susie's up. There's a better way to kind of approach it. So that's like a really basic, kind of silly example, but you guys get the idea. In terms of coaching, a good example is like the old adage of like the feedback sandwich. Instead of just saying like, okay, let's say like the squat was high, maybe there were some other things that look good. So maybe you start off and end with a positive note. So maybe you say, you did a great job on racking the weight. You did a great job setting your feet. I'd like you to take it a little bit lower next time. But overall, the bar path was great. Let's let's work on that and improve on it. So instead of just immediately kind of giving them the fault, and again, I could do better with this as well, especially when it comes to online coaching. But in general, try to also pick out the good stuff, expand on the good stuff, build off the good stuff, and don't just only highlight the mistakes. That is something I am constantly trying to do better job of. Let people know when they're doing good, as opposed to, and then kind of build off that versus just harping on the mistakes only. I think that you'll be more successful as a coach that way. So build on the successes, obviously correct the mistakes, but highlight the successes more than you highlight the failures. Highlight the successes more than you highlight the mistake. Correct the mistake, highlight the successes, move on. Make your partner look good, make your athlete look good. Positive reinforcement for stuff that they did well. Not to say you only want to be a cheerleader and everything always has to be positive, but in general, that's going to be a better approach. In terms of being a good partner as a handler, I think it's really important that, if you're making like good attempt selections and you're kind of looking out for your partner's back, if you know what their personal records are, if you know what their PR totals are, if you know where their competition is. So that's a really simple one. Just being present when you're spotting and loading, making sure you're not misloading the bar and things like that. That's going to make your partner look good because you're going to kind of do right by them. And I think it's really important, again, if someone's making a mistake, again, handling it in a more positive light as well. And if your partner does a good job, give them a fist bump, even if it's a small increase, if they do a little bit better rep, if the technique's better, let them know about it, give them some positive reinforcement. That's going to really make your partner look good. The next thing I learned from improv is the positive version of a story is more useful than the negative one. So like I mentioned before, if you just kind of start with no, or you start with something negative, that usually kind of ends the conversation. So an example in an improv scene, if you're going to be opening a door, for example, if the door is closed, the scene's kind of like stuck, right? But if you open the door, there's a lot of possibility for opportunity. So same kind of idea here, but I think it's important when we're when we're reflecting on ourselves, try to see the positives more than the negatives, and those success will build success. So a good example from my chubby little self, I squatted 800 pounds this year. So on the surface, if I was a negative person, I could say, well, my all-time best in competition is 900. So that's not great. That's kind of shitty, right? But I don't view it that way at all, because for context, I squatted 900 at super heavyweight, and in 2019, I squatted 800 in the 198 class. So that's pretty darn awesome. So if I was a pessimist, I might say, well, I lost 100 pounds on my squat. Or I could be like, well, man, I had my best pound for pound squat ever. I squatted 4 times body weight. What's more useful? What is more useful? The second version, right? Seeing that I got so there's many ways to measure success when it comes to powerlifting and when it comes to weight loss and body composition and some things are more subjective than objective. So a subjective measure might be the quality of the lift. So if you don't have like a velocity device, maybe it felt faster, it moved better, it just moved quote unquote prettier. Maybe your mechanics were better. So those are kind of subjective things. I mean, you really can't always measure them. But if you look at a video, you can kind of tell, hey, like I hit the same weight I did a couple of months ago, but man, this felt a lot better. It moved a lot smoother. That's what we call a quality of lift PR. So I could be like, the negative version would be, I didn't get any stronger, but the positive version is, man, that felt way better this time around. That felt awesome. I even hit that, fatigued. I hit that in a fatigue state. So I'll use another example of myself. I deadlifted 605 pounds, I guess this past month in February for our deadlift contest. I did that not peaked. I did that with no weight cut. I did that after doing a charity squat challenge of 315 for 33 reps. So I was super sore on my legs and my back, and I was still able to deadlift 605. Again, what's a more useful version of the story? That I lost 50 pounds in my deadlift from last year, or that I was able to do a 605 deadlift, not peaked, under fatigue, and sore, and with no weight cut. So that's a more useful version of the story. And it's true. You don't want to make things up, but there's ways that you could look at it that's more positive. Another one is a Wilks PR versus an all-time PR. So is your Wilks score improving? That's a way that you could look at a competition PR versus a gym PR. So a negative person might say, well, I did this in the gym, but if it's still the most that you've done in a competition, that's still progress. That's great. Was it the most you've done at this body weight? Was it the most you've done in whatever situation that you're at? So focus on the positive version of the story. Focus on the silver lining. That's going to be more useful for you to expand on moving forward. Obviously, you do want to analyze, and that's more for the coach's job, on what you did wrong and the mistakes you made and to correct those things. But in general, you're going to have a more happy, successful powerlifting career, because at the end of the day, this should be fun. It should be enjoyable. You should enjoy the journey. This is a long-term process. I mentioned before, I've been doing this for 14 years. And if you're going to beat yourself up after every meet and pick yourself apart, it's going to be a long journey, my friends. So you better sit back and enjoy the ride and look at the positive. This is another one that's big, especially for the coaches out there and for people that, present and make content and things like that. Admittedly, I'm very introverted. For people that don't know, I'm not really great with crowds. I used to be very nervous speaking in front of people. So one of the things that improv has taught me is that you can kind of bring an emotional state to a scene. So depending on what I'm doing, if I'm coaching, I might want to bring an emotional state that's more commanding to the room and have more energy and be a little bit more loud. If I'm programming, I might want to bring a more creative and intelligent, kind of calm, analytical state to my programming work. If I'm doing customer service, I might want to bring a more like loving, caring, happy, emotional state to that kind of work so I can best serve our customers. If I'm a meet director, I also want to really have a more loving, caring, and energetic emotional state. So our contests are fun and they're enjoyable, and I'm, delivering a great message to the crowd and getting them hyped up. And if I'm doing a educational talk, I want to, have, like I said, more of a cerebral type hat and, and show the attendees that I care. So depending on what I'm doing, I might bring a different emotional state to the task at hand. And when you're doing, scene work, there's going to be, useful things for having different positive and negative emotional states. In terms of what we're doing, I would, again, tend to have more positive states. And sometimes when I'm have to have a tough conversation with a member or an employee, I also try to be mindful. I'm not bringing be mindful not to bring too much of a negative state to a conversation, because that can set things off on the wrong foot. This is a big one for the coaches out here, but this is great for just communication, but simple and clear communication. Simple, short and concise, simple and clear. So this is really good. A good example is just cueing. And when it comes to verbal cueing, I think it's important that you kind of explain the cue ahead of time, especially if you're working with somebody in person. So, for example, if I'm instructing somebody to pause in a bench press or hit depth in a squat, instead of saying things like get up or explode up or even like press, you might just want to say up. And this is something I'm trying to be better with, because I realize sometimes I catch myself. So if I can say one word that's short and concise and has less syllables, they're going to process it better. It's less for them to process. They're going to hear it quicker. And it's everything's going to, the turnaround time is going to be faster. So up versus get up or get back up or drive back up. So all those things are fine. But when it's live cueing and when they're actually doing the set, the shorter, the more concise and sharp and concise the cue is, the better. For an equipped lifter, saying back versus hips back or sit back. So I would just say back, or if I want them to get their knees out, I might just say out, 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 out. So depending on what I'm trying to cue them, again, shorter, more concise, single word, less syllables. These are all things to consider. Even when I'm presenting and things like that, I try to be mindful of not using words that are too technical or too big. And if I use a technical word, I might try to explain it and be more clear. And I also try to provide context whenever possible, because obviously, things are true or untrue, or more useful or less useful depending on the context of them, especially when it comes to training and nutrition and programming. What might be true for a master's power lifter might be different for, a high school, wrestler, for example. So the context is different. So being simple, clear, concise, and short and concise are going to be very, very valuable. I want to make sure that people are understanding what I'm doing. And even something simple like just asking the person, was that clear? Or did that make sense? I try to, when I'm online coaching, I often will say, did that make sense? Is that clear? just to make sure that they are understanding instead of, so just posing that question back to them is really useful. So those are the big ones that I've learned. So just, again, so improv is really great for improving communication and listening skills. We didn't really touch a lot about listening, but a big one for improv, obviously, is when it's not your turn to talk. Make sure that you're actually listening and hearing your partner, and you're truly hearing and being present with what they're saying. So that's a really quick, just last piece. So we want to yes and more than no but. We want to accept and add to what our partner gives us. We want to make our partner look good. The positive version of the story is more useful than the negative story. We want to bring an emotional state to our work and to our training. I didn't even talk about the training part, but obviously if you're, depending on what phase of training you're in, you want to have an intent for the day. So by bringing an emotional state to certain hypertrophy block or a peaking block or strength block, you might have a different intent of the day based on what your goals are. So bringing an emotional state can help with that. And obviously a more focused and more driven and hardworking state is going to be more useful than a tired and, pessimistic type state. And when it comes to communication, we want to be simple and clear. We want our cues to be short and concise. That's what improv taught me. If you're local to the Long Island area, check out longislandimprov.com. You could also follow at Long Island Improv on Instagram. It's not a paid advertisement. I just want to support those who support us. And Michael Rock has been fantastic. But I think, do some personal development. Do some stuff outside the gym that's going to help. It's just going to make you a better human. It's going to make you a better person. And if you guys have some feedback on the non-powerlifting related episodes like this, let me know. Shoot me an email to gaglionestrength@gmail.com. I'd love to hear your feedback. Should I just stick to the X's and O's? Let me know what you think. But I want to do everything in my power to help you guys get stronger. If this podcast helped you, please give it a 5-star review. Please share it with a friend if you found some value in it. Check out the links below and support the program. Every little bit helps. And thank you guys so much for listening. Until next time, stay strong, and I'll see you soon.